Hello YouTube, Southern Wolverine here with another episode of Operation Laythe here in Kerbal Space Program. We are here in orbit with the Laythe transfer vehicles Mark 1 and Mark 2 over the moon of Laythe. I went ahead and docked them off camera since you've seen me do plenty of orbital rendezvous and docking. And honestly, the fuel transfer procedure has taken me the last like 15 minutes or so trying to make sure that it transferred all evenly. Basically, what I was doing was taking fuel from this one, transferring into these little ones as hoppers, and to make sure I kept the liquid fuel and oxidizer balanced, then transferring it from this tank into that one and that tank into that one. I did manage to salvage about 900 to 1,000 units of fuel and a matching amount of oxidizers. So that was still worth the effort, even though it took quite a bit of delta V to get this this vehicle here to a position where it could dock, because I had to do about a 1.5 kilometer per second total delta V to do all my rendezvous since their angles were so different. Uh, so in any case, we are done with him now. So we're going to go ahead and control from there, undock it, and just push it away. I did not bother transferring the RCS fuel over. I think at this point the RCS fuel is mostly just going to be dead weight. So I'm just going to use what RCS fuel I have and a little bit of the fuel that I had left on board just to push this away and get some distance, because I don't want to be running into it with the Laythe plane as it comes up here to rendezvous. Just don't want to mess around with that. Alright, so we're done with you. Thank you. You served your function well, sort of, despite your attempt at self-destruction. You got Bob here safely after having lost 80% of the spacecraft. But now it's gonna be time to go ahead and get Bob back up to this vehicle. Now it's gonna be a little bit tricky. The only kind of tricky part they'll have to overcome is getting the orbital inclination to match. Because of course this is in a fairly inclined orbit, as you see here. It's about 40-45 degrees or so. So we'll just have to time the liftoff of the space plane to a time when it's underneath this orbit and try to match that angle as well as we can. And then we'll do our on-orbit corrections if necessary. And this Laythe transfer vehicle Mark II now should have plenty of fuel to compensate, meet up with it, as long as I get into some sort of orbit that is close to this inclination. So, with no further ado, let's go ahead and switch to our Laythe plane and see if we can make this happen. Oh, how's that for a cool angle? I like that with the dark and everything. In fact, that's so cool, I think I'm going to get Bob back out. He's got plenty of time before his Before his loft window. No, before his launch window. So I'm going to get out and get another screenshot with him out here, because that's just too cool to pass up. With ship lights on and Laythe, or Jewel rather, lit up in the background against the dark surface of Laythe. There we go. Here, let's move him out to the side. Yeah! Cool beans. Alright. Snapshot! Wait, what is my snapshot button? I remapped them. There we go. I had to remap them, of course. I may have mentioned this before. I had to remap my Fraps keys because unfortunately the standard video capture button in Fraps is the same as the quick load button in Kerbal Space Program, and it's most unfortunate to, as we found out in this very mission, it's very unfortunate to hit load when you don't mean to. Okay, so having now gotten one last sojourn on the surface, we're gonna go ahead and pull up his gear, and I think I want to get him positioned to a good launch position. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn this to automatic switching too while I'm at it. It is in air breathing mode. already. So what I want to do, let's see, I'm facing, I want to see, I'm not gonna launch here. What I want to do is I want to try to launch in the daytime. You know, well, actually, there's no real reason to launch it in the day. I'll quick save before I launch this in case I hit a bump and make a lie out of that statement. So we want to launch at roughly a minus 45 inclination. So all we got to do is come around to a heading that is in that general direction. So parking brake off. I'll just give it the tiniest bit of throttle. Come on. Okay, and we'll just turn it to, see, 90 would be due east, so we'll turn it to roughly 135. Cut our throttle. Reset our parking brake. It looks like we got a little bit of a hill here, but it's not too bad for going up it. And that should give us plenty of space to get the lift we need. Alright, just so I don't miss my window, I'm gonna quick save now and go ahead and fast forward this a bit till I'm just about, actually I want to launch before I'm quite underneath it, because I'm going to continue to go around, of course. I'm not going to worry about immediately trying to get a rendezvous, because that's going to be tricky at best, and I'm not sure how long this lift is going to take, honestly. So we're just, oh, that should be about fine. And I want to set the transfer vehicle Mark II as my target, so I can monitor my orbital inclination as I'm going, my ascending and descending nodes. Whew, alright, here we go, Bob. You ready? Bob's pretty calm about the whole situation. He's got his rock collection. He's got all sorts of things. Wait, we do have his rock collection, right? Let's review our stored. Okay, we have our surface sample. Good, he's got his rocks. Keep that data. Keep the data. Okay. Be a shame if he came all the way here and didn't get to keep some Laythe rocks. He's already hidden some in his pants so that he can hide them away from the guys at the Kerbal Space Center. Oh, and I'm drifting backwards because I turned the parking brake off. Alright. No messing around. We're going for this. Full throttle. A little bit bumpy here, unfortunately. Okay, we got some speed. We got some speed. It should 50 meters per second should be good enough. We're going to start pitching up. There we go. We have liftoff. We have liftoff. Alright, let's get some altitude. We want to get, what was this, about 5,000 or 6,000 meters? I forget where that atmosphere transition takes place on Laythe. We want to get some altitude and start to build up some speed horizontal-wise. Farewell, lakes. We have had fun spending the last, like, almost 2 years here with you. But it's time to say goodbye. We've left our flag. We're bringing some rocks back. And other than that, other than a few tire tracks, we have made no impression on Laythe to contaminate its, you know, unspoiled beauty and whatnot. And now Bob is righteously concerned about his situation. It's like, hey, but I liked it here. Yeah, but you gotta go home. You'll be a hero when you get back. It'll be cool. It'll be all great, Bob. And you've got the rocks to add to your, you know, Dre's and Moon and Minmus rock collection. So, don't be so upset. Cool. Bob Kerman, still the only Kerman at this point to have set foot on the moon of a different planet. Although that's probably going to change. We might end up doing missions to Gilly, with the moon of Eve, and some other things like that. Actually, there's only a couple of moons outside of Kerbal orbit. Of course, Jewel has the majority of them, but Eve has one, and Duna also has a moon that I don't believe we've done anything with yet. I might have done a flyby on it, but I think that's about it. Okay, so apparently this atmosphere transition is a little higher than I thought it was, because we're well past 6,000 meters or whatever I thought it was, and it's looking like it's about 9. Alright, so now we're intake air is dropping quite a bit, so I'm going to level off a little bit here and try to build up as much horizontal speed as I can. Very much the same as our liftoffs from Kerbal. I don't suppose I need the landing lights anymore, and I'm trying to remember the key. I had that on 9. Yes! We don't need those anymore. We might flip them on again when it comes time to dock. That may be helpful to us. I'm not sure how helpful it will actually be. Now, the only question I've got... See, I've got the single-stage vehicle-to-orbit plan more or less understood on Kerbal. Of course, it's different here on Laythe. The atmosphere pressure drops off at a different rate. The gravity's different. The orbital speeds are thus different. So I want to build up as much horizontal speed as I can possibly get before I really pitch up and go for space. Because I don't want to get high up, have my engine cut out, and have to go to closed cycle mode wherein it will burn up all my fuel too fast or too quickly. That would be most unfortunate. And now see, I despite the fact that I'm still gaining altitude, my intake air has actually gone up slightly, and that, oh, it went back down. But that was because the speed increase, I believe, actually is, it's causing more air to ram in, essentially. Okay, and I can afford to stay here for quite some time. I have quite a bit of liquid fuel that I don't have oxidizer for. So I can actually stay in jet mode for quite a long time. And I think I'll stay here until pretty much I stop gaining speed. In fact, I'm going to level off a little bit so that I don't lose too much air. Because then my engines will lose efficiency and bad things will happen, such as us running out of fuel and having to land in the middle of the ocean, where a rescue would be rather difficult, to say the least. Then we would need to make some sort of space boat, which, now that I say it, actually sounds like an interesting thing to try. Although landing spacecraft in the water is not a terribly reliable thing to do this game unless you have one of a couple of mods. Oh, look, looks like there was another landmass underneath us. Yeah, there's a couple ones. It looks like there's one there, maybe one off there. It's hard to tell. It's so dark. Ooh, there's one of the other moons. Maybe Vol. The ice moon. So now we're picking up quite a bit of altitude that I wasn't really meaning to, and that's because I got a lot of horizontal speed going. So what's my ascending, descending look like? Actually not bad. 1.82, I can live with that. Now we're still gaining speed, so I'm just going to stay here. We should still have quite some time before we're too high that our engines are going to cut out on us. Looking pretty good, actually. And actually, as I go... Oh, look, we're building up the re-entry effect. We're going so fast now. Very nice. This is a great sign. We're reaching near orbital speed, which is, of course, exactly the idea. I think when the intake air gets down to about 0.1, I might just pitch up and go for space. Because we got a lot of speed built up here. We have not left the atmosphere, and we are going, almost 1.2 kilometers per second. That's crazy fast. Whew. I was a little concerned that this wouldn't work that well on Laythe, but so far so good. So far so good. Now, as soon as we go to rocket mode, the one we got to watch is oxidizer, because I'm going to have extra fuel, more fuel than I need, but the oxidizer is going to run out first. Which is the other reason I'm trying to take advantage of the oxygen at Laythe for as long as I can. See, now on Kerbal, somewhere around in here is where the engines end up cutting out and going to air or going to closed cycle. So I'm going to assume it's more or less the same here, although that's at a lower altitude, of course, here on Laythe, due to the less dense atmosphere. Oh, look at Bob! He's doing a little dance. He loves it. He's like, oh, things are going well. They're actually going quite well. And I'm really jinxing myself here, and I realize that. So, yeah. I'm going to shut up about how well things are going. And I'm just jabbering about the nonsense, because not a whole lot of news or anything to go over to kill any time. I mean, the only real interesting space-related news I saw recently was that with the whole, politics has entered the realm of space flight, and unfortunately in the form of the Russia situation in Crimea and what do you call it, in the Ukraine, as the Russians did not appreciate these sanctions being placed on them, so their response, unfortunately, was to, promise that they're not going to sell us the RD-180 liquid rocket engine anymore, which is a big one for us. It's up, there we go, now we're in closed cycle mode. It's a big one for the US. It's the engine that the United Launch Alliance, which is a combination of Boeing and Lockheed, I believe, uses on the Saturn class rockets, or the Atlas class rockets rather, whatever they are, some kind of rocket. So that's kind of a big deal. I mean, it means that, whoa, actually I should be paying attention instead of talking about news. Trying to kill time, and I almost killed Bob. That would have been unfortunate. We actually made orbit with plenty of fuel to spare. Alright, so we just want to make sure we get out of the atmosphere, and then we'll deal with orbital corrections from there. Okay, that's more than enough. Really, we only needed to get to 50. I'm actually quite a bit higher than I needed to be. Ooh, and we're even entering the sunlights. Ooh, sunrise on Laythe is cool. Look at that. Bing! Yeah, so anyway, that's, kind of a hurdle that the U.S. space program will have to deal with if we don't end up, resolving the political differences and lifting that situation. Of course, the Russians are also sending all of our astronauts to the International Space Station. So this might be a good thing in the sense for the private companies that are doing space flight, the SpaceXs of the world, and others who are looking at manned vehicles. It might inspire the U.S. Congress, perhaps, to, instead of single bidding a lot of these things, to open them up to competition, which we might win with local companies, or at least, domestic companies. So that might be, a plus that would come out of that. So the Russians might find that they've sort of shot themselves in the foot a little bit. And this is unusual in the history of space flight. Despite political differences over decades, the one thing that pretty much has been consistent is cooperation in space programs. Actually, the Russian and Space Agency and NASA and ESA, the European Space Agency, have done quite a bit of joint work. Companies in different countries sell engines and components to one another. They've launched. The U.S. was obviously instrumental with the space shuttle and building the International Space Station. They launched, parts that nobody else really could have done. And of course, now the bus to the International Space Station is, of course, the Russian Soyuz. And it goes back as far as even towards the end of the Cold War, when the U.S. and Russia pretty much agreed on nothing. They still had a joint Apollo and Soyuz mission, which was where the two capsules docked, and so it's very unusual in spaceflight history that the U.S. and Russia have been at odds enough that the space agencies have felt the impact of that dispute. So in any case, I guess that's enough on that. Let's go ahead and get the this orbit set up. All right, prepare for your orbital insertion burn, Bob, and go. Right, this should have more than enough fuel. We should be able to do our rendezvous and everything too. I was a little worried we might have to actually have the transfer vehicle come rendezvous with this, which would have been possible, but far more annoying, as that vehicle is not nearly as maneuverable as this is. Okay, not too shabby. We did end up with almost 3 degrees of inclination difference, which actually isn't bad considering I had to modify it by 45. So we'll just do a bit of a correction here, and I overcorrected like a moron. Oh, I overcorrected again. I overcorrected my overcorrection. There. Okay, and I'll deal with getting an encounter later. This, unfortunately, that, the transfer vehicle is also in a somewhat elliptical orbit, which is going to make it a little trickier to rendezvous with, but not too bad. And I hate to waste fuel for that vehicle on correcting its inclination. Not even really correcting, but altering its inclination. It's just sort of a waste of energy. And we don't really need, I mean, we might as well use the fuel that's in this vehicle. And it'll have more than enough liquid fuel left over to fly for some time on Kerbal when we get back. Alright, we got a 4-second burn coming up soon here. I'm trying not to zoom past it, as I often do. Alright. And burn in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, so my count was a little off. Sue me. Well, close enough. Stop with the burning. Okay. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get my encounter set up and rejoin you guys in just a minute. Alright guys, welcome back. Here we are, we're coming into our target. We're doing it at a fairly high speed here, so we got to quickly chop our velocity down. Fortunately, this engine is quite powerful and the vehicle is fairly light, so we're able to do so pretty readily there. So I'm just going to try to zero this out, go for a docking, and we have more than enough fuel left for this maneuver. Which is excellent news indeed. So I may even have some of the fuel left here to transfer up. Although there's almost no point in that since it'll still be on board. I can always transfer it if I run out on the way home. So I'm not even going to worry about that. Alright. And we have plenty of monopropellant. So I'm going to go ahead and use that for docking so I can save this fuel. I'll give it a quick burst from the engines, get it started. Actually won't take much to do that. And we can do our turns. Whoa! Overturn, overturn. We can do our turns entirely on our without RCS even, so it's another benefit too. A lightweight vehicle with lots of reaction control. Save ourselves a little bit of fuel there. A little bit of fast forward. So I know I can get pretty close to this before I zero the speed out, since the thrust to weight ratio is quite good, even under just the impact of the RCS. See, look how fast just RCS is dropping that down. Alright. Yeah, that'll do. We're just going to use RCS. Still have almost 100 RCS fuel left. That should be more than enough for my docking. Oh yeah, settle it right in. Nice. Within 200 meters, we are ready to go for our dock, although we have to go around the other side. I guess I can switch to the vehicle, the transfer vehicle, and turn it around. Might be easier, but whatever. Alright, let's get lined up. Alright, in fact, I think I'll do that. I'll use the alternate docking procedure. Instead of pointing at a known orientation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to the other vehicle, take control of this port, find the space plane, which is over there. Actually, we're pointed almost in the right direction. And, well, it doesn't want to set as target, possibly because I don't have the docking port open. Yeah, we really should open the shield. That would make this a whole lot easier. Alright, now I should be able to set that as a target. Yep. Alright, set that as a target. And all I have to do is take this and point it directly at the target. Not worried about the velocity at the moment. Just trying to get this oriented. And back over here. Now I do have to start getting that velocity lined up, which I better go to fine controls because that's quickly going to get out of hand. Okay, so 100 meters away we can afford to pick up some velocity. Get our dock and get ready to get our boy Bob back home. See, now he's loving it. He's back in space. He's out of that stupid atmosphere. He does not like the space planes, or at least he doesn't like planes necessarily. But being in space doesn't bother him. Okay. Almost there, Bob. Almost to your ticket home. Alright. He's even doing his little happy dance. Alright, moment of truth. It's not, and I want to get this, actually the wings are even more or less oriented the right way, so that they're not inside the path of any of our atomic engines that might damage the wings, thus making return to Kerbin's atmosphere problematic, let's say. Okay, let's go to the chase camera, make this a little bit easier on ourselves. In fact, I'll rotate just a little bit that way to try to split the difference between the engines that are going to stick around for longer. Cycle the SAS real quick to try to get the stability back. Ooh, I do hope that it's not going to hit either of my verticals. I'm a little worried about these two engines here hitting the the flame hitting the verticals. Well, we'll find out. Ooh, better slow this down. Better slow it down. Come on, John, you're not paying attention. Okay, there we go. There we go. Come on, Bobo. Yeah, first try. That is how we do that. Alright, now Bob, look at him. He's all happy. He's ready to go home. We have successfully brought the rescue vehicle out here, and the only thing that remains to be seen is whether or not it has enough fuel to get him all the way back to Kerbin. And I feel like it does, but we do not know for sure. But that will be in the next episode. Cliffhanger! Thank you guys for watching this episode of Operation Laythe. I am Southern Wolverine here in orbit around the moon Laythe with Bob Kerman, wishing you all a good day.